Hey loves, welcome back to my channel. This is Gabrielle Dejoie, and today I'm going to be sharing about my birth experience, my birth story. Things did not go exactly how I expected them to go. My original birth plan was to deliver in a birthing center and to have a natural delivery, to have a water birth. All that did not happen. So stay tuned. I'm going to share with you what went down, what craziness ensued, and how my beautiful, healthy baby girl came into this world. I also have some footage for you of me in the hospital and some special pictures of her birth or around her birth and like my labor. So yeah, stay tuned. If you've been watching my videos up until now, you might know that I planned a water birth. I planned to birth at a birthing center. I planned to have a natural childbirth. All these things, a lot went a lot different than I had planned, right? And I guess that's the thing about, your birth plan, right? Is like you can plan and then everything might not follow that perfect plan that you have set up in your head. So I also want to share with you something that I'm really trying to do or have been doing for the last several weeks. Really just, embrace your story, embrace the birth that you had. Things might go differently than planned. And so, plan for the plan to go awry and just know that, have the best intentions to have the birth that you set up for, but don't be too disappointed if it doesn't happen that way. I really had to sit with it and step away from my birth experience. There can be a lot of a lot of trauma that surrounds birth, especially when it's not how you planned. Give yourself grace and give yourself understanding and compassion when going back over that birth story or when remembering things. I think that's really important for every person that gives birth or is about to give birth. You are a warrior and you are bringing life into this world, and that is so beautiful and so divine. So just remember that part. As I go back over this, when I was kind of writing out some notes for this, it was just, I don't know, I was getting back in my feelings. I went back over a video that my doula had taken of my daughter coming into this world, and it was just like, I cried, obviously, and it was just beautiful. So even if it's not the birth you expected, like what you're doing brings in another human being into this world. So give yourself grace, mama. Anyways, we're gonna get into it. So my birth story, I feel like it doesn't start on the day my daughter was born. It started on December 28th. I went into my birth center to have my 40-week appointment. And during this appointment, my blood pressure was like slightly elevated. It was more elevated than it had been during my whole pregnancy and what was normal for me. And it wasn't too high, like it wasn't over the numbers that are too high, but they were slightly concerned, let's say that. And they sent in labs so that they could get those back to just check and make sure everything was good. I did go ahead and do a cervical check, and I was 1 centimeter dilated. My labs came back like immediately. They looked good. And at this point I was basically told to go ahead and check my blood pressure at home. I had a blood pressure cuff at home. I was not ordered to do bed rest, but they did say I really needed to take it easy, to relax as much as possible. And I was told to come back in 2 days later for another blood pressure checks, just so that they could make sure, because they really wanted me to be safe. And, I do appreciate this aspect, because especially for Black women, high blood pressure is something that can kill us and has traditionally killed us and is very preventable in terms of making sure mom and baby is safe. I was also very nervous to go into this 40th week, okay? I thought my daughter was gonna be born on Christmas or before Christmas, and it was already December 28th, so I was kind of depressed on Christmas Day, and I just really wanted her to be here. Also, I I felt like I was doing really well. Like I had handled it. I got to 40 weeks. I was fine that, that week going into 40 weeks. Let me tell you, when I hit 40 weeks, I was tired. I was done. I wanted my daughter here. I was like, where is she? Why is she late like her mom? What's going on? The other piece of this is I started to get nervous, and I feel like in my heart that this really contributed to the high blood pressure, that the higher blood pressure that was happening in this 40th week. Going into my 40th week, I was very keenly aware that you risk out of the birth center if you hit 42 weeks. While I was in such a normal range of time to have a baby, like 40 to 42 weeks is totally normal, even going into your 41st week is normal. But in that 41st week, you start doing stuff like an extra ultrasound to make sure that the baby's okay. You start doing more labs and tests and stuff. You start doing more remedies to kind of get you to induce naturally. This being my first baby, I knew that the possibility of me going over 40 weeks was probable, but I also just felt like there was just such a short window of time that if I missed it, I would have to last minute change to a hospital or, get induced like the very last day, and just all of these things are running through my mind. 2 days later, on December 30th, I go back to my appointment at the birthing center. I literally had set up an acupuncture appointment for later that day. Like I was like, I'm going to have this baby before the new year. Like we're going to do this. We're going to have acupuncture and we're going to get this baby out. I'm going to go to my appointment. I'm going to be fine, and I'm going to leave and get some lunch, and then I'm going to go to acupuncture. Girl, that did not happen. I went in for my blood pressure check. I was still on the higher side when they checked me. They had me sit for about 20 minutes. Now, let me tell you, sitting for 20 minutes worrying about your blood pressure just elevating or what's going to happen if your blood pressure is higher, not the most calming experience, So, of course, I'm nervous during that time. I'm annoyed that I can't just get out of there. They check my BP again, and it is even higher. The lower number was only about 1 to 2 numbers above the high blood pressure range, but that was enough for it to be high. And it was enough for the midwives to say, let's have a conference and let's talk about it with the other midwives. They have another tech come in, another person to come in to check my blood pressure. And it just keeps rising at this point. After they talk and discuss, there's 3 midwives in the practice that I was being seen at. And so they come back, one of the midwives comes back, and she talks to me saying they want me to go to triage at the hospital. I break down in tears. I know what this means. I know that we are at this point where they believe it's basically too high risk for me to just wait. They want to make sure that the baby's okay. They want to get like numbers immediately back from my labs. They want to, check and monitor my blood pressure over a period of time. So they had me go to triage. I talk more with the nurse, and as we're talking and I'm trying to dry my tears and calm myself down a little bit, I realized that the likelihood that I'm going to give birth at the hospital and not be able to give birth at the birthing center is very high. So in this moment, like I'm crying because all my dreams of a natural water birth, a beautiful calming experience at the birthing center are just crushed. And I didn't really even, I had a plan with my doula for what happened if I went to the hospital to give birth, but I never envisioned that for myself. I never planned for that. That was not in my realm of possibilities. I really, planned for the best case scenario. And here we were, where we were already off the plan. So I call my fiance, the midwife is like, take your time, like do what you need to do. I call my fiance in the office and I'm trying to hold back tears because I know that that's just raising my blood pressure. He goes, is it time? And, you know, because he's been really excited for like, we can get the call any minute at this point. So I was like, well, here's what's going down. So I explain it to him. You know, I'd say, come on home. He's at work, obviously. I say, come on home. And this is early in the day. This is probably like my appointment had been at like 11. So mind you, I got up early this morning. Okay. I got up early on December 30th. I think I had stayed up super late that night too, because that's just what I was doing because pregnancy insomnia. So, you know, I'm tired at this point already. Just keep that in mind. So I tell him to come home. I say they want me to get to the hospital kind of sooner than later. They said, you know, if you want to eat, go ahead and eat, but we do want you to get over to the hospital soon. So I'm like, okay. I call to cancel my acupuncture appointment because I'm going to the hospital instead. And I drive home, decided to start getting ready and just like kind of prep my mind for I'm having this baby at the hospital. I throw a couple extra kind of clothing into my bag that I had already packed because, you know, if you give birth at the hospital, you stay more than 6 hours after birth. So I'm kind of like, okay, I need to be a little bit more prepared. Call my doula, I update her on what's going down and everything that's happening. You know, and she gives me like calm, sweet words. And I'm honestly freaking out because I also know that one of the main things that can be very dangerous for Black women too is high blood pressure, right? And I'm going to a hospital that I know that we are often taken care of in a different way or seen, our needs and our pain is not acknowledged in quite the same way at a hospital. So all this is really nerve-wracking for me and freaking me out already, right? So I'm just trying to keep calm, do some deep breathing while I'm at home and getting stuff prepared. So my fiance gets home. I tell him to go ahead and pack a couple extra items. We give my sister-in-law a call because we do have 2 puppies. And so the initial plan was that she would come over to our house and watch the pups for the duration of time while we were at the birthing center, just in case, right? And so I'm thinking, okay, if we're going to the hospital, let's go ahead and give your sister a call because, you know, we need to make sure that they're cared for. So she plans to come on over. We pack up the car. We get all that stuff together. We get, you know, the car seat in case, but also once again, planning for we're probably coming home with a baby. While we're waiting for my sister-in-law, my fiance takes a shower and I was just too tired to do all that. So we go ahead and leave out. I realize I've left all of my snacks at home. We turn around so that I can pack my snack bag that I had initially planned to bring to the birthing center. And we head to the hospital. So we head towards downtown where the hospital that we're going to triage is. And we hadn't eaten yet, right? And I knew that I wanted to get food in before I might be told I'm not allowed to eat anything. So we stop at this restaurant downtown. I get a lobster roll and we order it for curbside pickup and we eat in the car. So we're literally, me and my fiance and my big old belly, we're just in the front seat and we're chowing down. And right after I finished eating, I feel like a stronger contraction. Now, I had been having some minor contractions and they weren't consistent, but the last couple of days I had been feeling contractions. So I start timing on my little app to check my contractions. And so he's still eating. I had way finished because I was ravenous through my pregnancy. And so I am tracking these contractions and they just get stronger and stronger. And I am just gripping onto the side door. And at some point I turn and I'm like, honey, I don't want to rush you, but we got to get to the hospital. Like this is painful. So actually, as he starts like finishing up and puts the car in gear, I think I timed another contraction. And my app actually said, head to the hospital. And I was like, oh, great, now that we're finally trying to go. So we arrive at the hospital around 4 p.m. My fiance drops me off at the front and I walk in and tell them like I'm going to triage. They have me change out my mask, even though I just put on a new one in the car. And so he went to go and park. This nice older man just like walked me up to the elevator and was like, first baby, huh? Like, and really excited. And here I am, I'm thinking, well, I don't know if we're actually having the baby, but I'm going to triage, you know? Apparently that's where you start out, is you will always start out in triage, even if you were going to the hospital to give birth and are in labor currently, that's where you start out, as triage. So I go in, kind of like a small like cubicle kind of thing with like a little curtain in front of it. It's like a large room with like several beds in it essentially. And there's like a hospital gown on the bed. And I think I saw that and I got more nervous, like, oh my gosh, like I have to get undressed. I have to like, is this really happening? I'm gonna be here. Still trying to calm myself down and still freaking out simultaneously. Ironically, my contractions actually slowed down a bit while I was in triage, or they didn't feel as intense at least. So I'm in this room by 4:10, this small room. They never actually tell me that I'm gonna be staying. They put on a little cuff on my finger that checks your heart rate, and they put the cuff on me. And, you know, they start checking. They have me, I think they had me do like a pee test just so they could check my urine. So that cup of my urine just sits on the table for quite a while in the triage room. My fiance comes up, he finds me, he's sitting in like the small little space that they have. They have one chair in the triage room with my stuff piled on top of him. And so they never actually tell me, hey, like we want to keep you in the hospital to have this baby, like, but they did a couple things that made me think like, okay, we might be staying, we might be having this baby. So I go ahead and ask, I'm like, wait, are we staying? And the sweet nurse, says, you know, oh yes, it would be our suggestion, like, sorry, it'd be our suggestion that, you know, we go ahead and get this baby out of you. How does it sound? And I was like, you know what? Sounds great at this point, because I am so ready to just meet my daughter. Like at this point, as much nerves are running through me, as much as like the plans have changed, I've understood and kind of like taken in the fact that I'm probably going to have this baby at the hospital. Plans are shifting, you know, my water birth is no longer an option. Okay, we're gonna have this baby. And thankfully, we're gonna have this baby because I want this baby out of me and I want her in my arms. I wanna meet her. I was just relieved to commit my mindset to, okay, we're doing this here, we're doing this soon. By 4:44 p.m., I am being checked into the hospital. I'm asked all these questions, you know, they ask about my safety and, you know, am I using drugs and like all this stuff. I'm also having contractions on my own. So my contractions did speed back up, and I want to say they were fairly regular. And by 5:30 p.m., the plan became to watch what I did naturally for the next 2 hours, but still to induce. And this is because they did do a check, I want to say, and I was still 1 centimeter dilated. So you have to be 10 centimeters dilated to actually be able to push, right? And so if your contractions are strong, but you're not dilated, like the contractions themselves actually help you dilate, but at the same time, I wasn't progressing quite like they like it. And, you know, once again, if you're after 40 weeks and anything is awry or elevated or, you know, not perfect, it's kind of like the cost benefit analysis of getting the baby out versus keeping the baby in starts going up drastically. So they did want to get my child out sooner than later. So the plan did become induction. Now, unfortunately, because I presented with slightly elevated blood pressure, mind you, my pressure did not go above back into that high zone at any time in triage. So I didn't actually technically have high blood pressure, but it was still elevated, okay? So they were still monitoring it because that is what I had gotten sent with, and they wanted to induce, right? So I think it was a culmination of these two items that led to me not being able to go on like the natural birthing section of the hospital, like the where they have a section of that hospital. It's very baby friendly, the whole hospital in itself, but they had a section where you can give birth under the care and supervision of midwives. It's like a birth center, except it's connected to the hospital. They do have tubs. You don't have to do the continuous monitoring, all of this stuff, right? Unfortunately, I was not able to go into that side of the hospital. So they educated me on my options for induction, and there's a couple different ways you can be induced. One is like this balloon that they place in the cervix. There's a pill called Cytotec, and then there's Pitocin, which goes in through your IV. I did decide on Cytotec. It is one pill that's placed. You can either take it by mouth or it's placed at your cervix to kind of help soften the cervix and open it up. So mind you, I never really wanted to be induced. I never really wanted to have any meds associated with my pregnancy, right? So it still is feeling like a little bit of like a blow by blow, but also in the moment, I'm just like, okay, we got to do this. This is what's happening. This is the safest and healthiest for my daughter at this point. So we're doing this. And I knew I really had to be in the head space to be able to do what I was about to do, which is give birth, right? So I really just needed to like snap out of it, let it go, and be right where I was. My contractions had felt mild in the triage room, but they were consistent. So I did dilate on my own, but only about 0.5 centimeter. I got to my room about 7:30 p.m. I chose to do an induction method called Cytotec, which is a pill that they placed in the cervix. Some babies can just not really like take to this well, right? So essentially they do fetal monitoring consistently while the Cytotec is kind of working its magic, okay? So I knew I was gonna have to be continuously monitored for about 4 hours is the time frame that the Cytotec is really in your body, at least the one that they gave me. They ordered Cytotec at around 7:45 p.m. And my doula headed to the hospital at that point when I told her that they were going to go ahead and induce me. Hey, so I really just wanted to be able to have some of this to remember, but things have changed, plans have changed. I am at the hospital. I went in for my 40 week. I'm 40 weeks and 4 days right now, but I went in for my 40-week appointment at the birthing center on Monday and had slightly high blood pressure, and so that's one of the things that can risk you out of the birthing center. And ended up checking for the beginning of this week, and then Wednesday I went back, and I guess Wednesday was today, and my blood pressure was still a little high. So the midwives there suggested that I go to the hospital to triage just to check my blood pressure continuously and see, and their recommendation was that I stay here and get induced because I'm already over that 40-week mark. And so yeah, here we are. We are expecting baby girl sometime in the next couple days. When you get induced, it takes some time, but yeah, my birth plan was a natural labor and delivery. It was to give birth at the birth center. It was to do a water birth and all this good stuff. And those things have drastically changed and shifted. So I was definitely more than a little disappointed, but I'm trying to go with the flow. I'm trying to, stay calm and kind of just go with the next step. So pretty sure I still plan on doing a natural birth. But yeah, we are at the hospital. My room is pretty nice. My fiance is with me, although he's going to get like me an iced tea and him maybe some food in the cafe. And yeah. You can see in this video that I inserted that I am a little discouraged, but I was also kind of upbeat and just ready to meet my baby. So I just had my first dose of Cytotec, which is to ripen my cervix, and there's Eric. Hoping that my cervix opens on its own, and I really hope that maybe I'll be able to go kind of natural after that instead of doing Pitocin, but we shall see. So yeah, I don't know what time it is. It is 8:45 p.m. I think we got into the hospital around 5 something. So yeah, we are just waiting for our baby girl. Contractions sped up considerably after they placed the Cytotec, which I was happy because it meant that there was some progress, right? That continuous monitoring, once again, this was not something that I wanted, and I kind of forgot to mention it because, you know, they just don't do that in the birth center. That's not something that happens in the birth center. And so I knew that I needed to do it at least for the beginning part while I was on Cytotec, but it wasn't something that I really wanted to do like all the way through, right? It really, so the monitoring, they put a strap around your belly and it monitors the baby's heart rate and mine and the contractions. She was good and we both responded to it very well. But you know, I really wanted to get the monitors off, and I wanted to be able to, like, having that belt around you really restricts movement. Obviously, you know, if you're hooked up to wires and stuff, you can't take a shower. I really wanted to be able to take a shower and just have more of the birthing experience that I had kind of expected to have in the birthing center. I didn't want to let go of my whole plan, you know, and I really did believe that I could still have some of that. I think I was clinging, I don't know if I was clinging too hard to my birth plan, but you know, the plan was still to go natural. So I did want to do the exercises and movement and water therapy. If I couldn't get a tub, I wanted the shower, you know, I still had these big goals for my labor. Basically, I was told that theoretically after the Cytotec, I could probably get off the monitors, have a shower, you know, and all that. Before my doula got there, I was just kind of hanging out. Me and my fiance were just chilling, you know, in bed relaxing, and I was breathing through the contractions. I think I called room service while he went to get the bags out of the car. I called room service to like get some food because I was hungry again. I just was always hungry when I was pregnant. And so I ordered food before the cafeteria closed. So we watched a Big Bang Theory because that was the show that we were starting and had started to watch towards the end of my pregnancy. I bounced on the ball, this yoga ball a little bit, but I was kind of just like chilling and feeling lazy. So I just laid in bed. I knew I could probably be doing exercises to get the baby moving down more and make my contractions more productive, but I was really just like chilling. My doula, you know, got there. And we chatted a bit, all three of us, and she told me that this was really my opportunity to nap. This is my opportunity to get some rest. And I remember telling her weeks ago, she said, okay, early labor is gonna be when you're wanting to rest. And I was like, I'm not gonna be wanting to rest. I'm gonna be super excited and, you know, nervous and ready for my child to come out. Like, I'm gonna be fine. So, and that's what happened. I was really just like hyped up. I was excited, you know, I was ready. And so I was breathing through it. I was like, this is fine. We got this. You know, I can breathe through these contractions. When you don't know, you really don't know. Like, yes, I was able to breathe through early labor contractions. That's exactly what you're supposed to be able to do. Those things got so much more intense. Like, anyways, so I did just kind of chill out. We put on a movie, we chatted a bit over the movie, so much so that we ended up turning it off. My fiance ran and got, there was like another cafe there, so I think he went and got some food and got me an iced tea, stuff like that. And I want to say by the time he got back, like these contractions had picked up, okay? So like the movie, I was like over it. He had put on some type of action movie and I had asked him to put on the movie knocked up. He put on like a similar, like The Other Guys or something. And it was just, it's not what I wanted. So we ended up turning off the movie. And I asked my doula to hang up some of my affirmations. So I'm kind of moving around. I think this is when we started doing a little bit more movement, and she was like, okay, we're gonna start the circuit. Do you want me to put you on the circuit? So we did some of that. So the circuit involved 3 different movements. One of them is like you on hands and knees. So I was on the bed on my hands and knees, kind of with your butt propped up in the air a little bit more, so you're lower on your arms. We also did side laying, where you have like one leg kind of out to the side and like the rest of your body's on like straight, and then your leg is kind of out. And the next one we did using the yoga ball, and so just to be bouncing up and down. My contractions really did start to get more intense. We put on my labor playlist that I had made, you know, and I just started focusing a lot more. Like there was still able to be some chat and talk and stuff, but my focus was really on breathing through the contractions, and my contractions did speed up. So I think they became every like 2 to 3 minutes at this point. And they felt super strong. Probably around like, this is like 10 p.m., 11 p.m. when it started kicking my ass, okay? Like it started significantly ramping up. I'm texting a couple of my girlfriends at this point, and you know, I let them know, some of them, and let them know when I was in triage, like, okay, plans changed. We're at the hospital. We're gonna have this baby soon. So, you know, I'm texting my friend. At some point, I just stopped texting people because I am so focused. I cannot be on my phone, you know, formulating a response. Yeah, I just was not there anymore to do all that, right? With all the moving around, the monitoring was very, very annoying. It kept on slipping. They couldn't get like an accurate, like continuous read, because every time I moved positions, the monitor would slip. And so it was no longer monitoring the baby's heart rate, which my baby's heart rate stayed fine like the whole time that we were doing monitoring. And so especially when I was on my hands and knees, which ended up being like one of my favorite positions because it just helped the contractions move through me with slightly less pain, is what I found for me. That's one of the things that helped me the most. And so that position, it was just so hard for the monitor to stay on my belly that was kind of like propped up in the air. I also just wanted to take a shower for comfort and just to feel better because, you know, there was a little sweating going on. I just felt icky from the day. I just wanted to be off the monitor, honestly. This is interesting. So I had a very stern and pushy resident that was kind of like on staff during the beginning of my labor. And my fiance actually noticed her demeanor was a little bit like cold-ish way before I did. And he mentioned it when she walked out the room the first time, and I was like, oh, I didn't even notice, you know? And he was thinking of the movie Knocked Up where literally like the guy has to go bring the doctor outside of the room and is like, listen, this is her first time doing this. You be mean to me, not her. So he was kind of like, my fiance was kind of prepared to have that kind of a moment, you know, which I thought was really sweet. But I just didn't even notice it in her demeanor. Now that changed, okay, because the resident ended up being very pushy about asserting that I should do, you know, more, like I should do Pitocin, I should, you know, do other interventions. And this was one reason I did not want to deliver at a hospital, because I did not want a doctor or staff to push me into interventions because they wanted me to have my baby soon. You know, I was like, my baby will come out when they're coming out, especially if I'm doing what I need to progress. Like, we're good. My contractions were consistent and they were strong. And all Pitocin would have done, this is something my doula, you know, helped support me in and educate me on. She's like, all Pitocin would do at this point is make your contractions more consistent and stronger, and basically force you before, into getting an epidural, force you into medications, because the contraction, the pains would be so strong, right? And I was progressing on my own after the Cytotec even had left my system. It got me going. It softened my cervix and had me dilate a little bit more, So the Pitocin was not necessary at that point. And she kept pushing it. She went, oh, well, 75% of this hospital unit is on Pitocin. And just really unnecessary comments in a very unnecessary tone, and very much acting as if she knew what was best and I was stupid or what have you. I really tried to calm this down and think like, okay, this isn't just because obviously I had some thoughts that some of this could be because I was a Black woman, but once again, like the hospitals in general will often offer you or push interventions on you, suggest things that aren't 100% necessary because they might have a certain time limit or, kind of agenda for wanting to get your baby out. This is easier, or this is whatever, this is safer. And that's just not what I wanted to do. I really wanted to, be in charge of my own labor and delivery. And I had too much information to just go for it and say, oh yeah, like give me all of the things, no, like I was educated. And so that makes it harder, honestly, to push things on you when you are educated and when you do have a doula, which once again, highly suggest if you are pregnant and you are going to have a baby, I do highly suggest a doula, like emotionally supportive, thing for the mama. It was so helpful. And so a lot of this time I actually did look to my doula because my contractions were very intense. I looked to my doula to help support and explain to this resident why I did not want X, Y, and Z, why I did not feel the need to have Pitocin, why I did not want continuous monitoring, or wanting to be off the monitor more often than I was on. That resident was just very annoyed, I think, that I was not following her suggestions and not going along just easily and very extremely willingly with what she was saying to do. Her saying stuff like, well, if you don't dilate fast enough, we're just gonna have to do Pitocin anyways. It was just very annoying and frustrating and unnecessary, like I'm sitting there, I'm contracting, like leave me alone. So that was, I want to say, you have the highlight and then you have like the thorns, like the roses and thorns. That was like the thorn of my labor and delivery experience. But luckily, like she went off shift soon. And so it wasn't terrible, so my doula reassured me and supported me in my choice to not do Pitocin or not have another induction method yet, to see how far I progressed on my own. And just know that Pitocin might be something that I have to do later on, but it wasn't something that I needed to do in that moment when I was still so early on in my labor. So when I asked about not doing continuous monitoring, this resident was also very annoyed, even though the Cytotec had been out of my system and had run its course. My doula was just great at advocating for me, as well as my partner was. When the resident came back in the room, she was just very adamant about continuous monitoring, The thing is, you can refuse almost any intervention or anything, okay? You have the right to do that. And so I definitely had the right to refuse continuous monitoring. Now, of course, I wanted to do what was best for my baby. And I had enough tools and enough insight, both from the really sweet nurse that was on staff and was in my room with me when we were doing the continuous monitoring, and helping me move around the monitor when the monitor would lose the baby's heart rate and all that. I had enough people that were knowledgeable and helping me decide, okay, when is it necessary that I need to do continuous monitoring? I wanted to do intermittent, or I was open to doing intermittent monitoring. And, I'm really thankful that I had the great nurse that I did. She was so sweet and so helpful, so motivating and kind and patient. And and, you know, and reassuring me everything was progressing quickly and well, that I was actually, you know, dilating and progressing quicker than she had seen other people that have been induced. Obviously, doing that movement really helped to bring the baby down, to move me through my contractions, and make contractions really productive. So the resident was just so clearly mad that we were pushing back against her suggestions and advice and all this stuff. And just really rude and short with us. She told me she'd have to check in with the attending doctor, which I was fine with. I was fine with going up the pole and, you know, making sure, like, is this something I have to do? Is this advice from the attending, or is this advice because you just want to get out of here quicker? Like, what's going on? The attending eventually did come back to me at around 2 a.m. I think it was about doing the intermittent monitoring, where basically she said I'd be monitored every 2 hours for a 20-minute span. And then we could take off the monitor and I could move about, I could have my shower, I could do X, Y, and Z. And so she was fine with me being, you know, on the monitor 20 minutes and then off the rest of the 2 hours. And then, you know, at the top of every 2 hours, we'd go back to the 20-minute monitoring. So she had a much better bedside manner. This was also a Black woman. And it was just, she was very pleasant about it. She explained to me why she wanted to do it instead of demanding kind of that we do it. And just patient and understanding with me, you know, which made so much of a difference in my experience as the person actually giving birth. Mind you, I'm going through these contractions. So even that, like the attending that came into the room, she had to sit there and wait very patiently as I was contracting, because I was just like breathing through them, like, you know, doing what I could just to like stay in it and like have it like flow and still try to stay kind of calm, and open so that the contraction would progress. So the funny thing is the resident did not even come back into the room after like that. She, like, her shift ended and I didn't see her. Every other resident that came in, they would come in with the new resident and, like, you know, introduce them or pass them over. She didn't come back. I wasn't upset about it, honestly. I was very okay with her leaving and just never coming back in the room anyways. So the rest of the doctors, the nurses, the staff were very nice and sweet. And overall, it was a good experience. But I think that little portion of my labor experience, that was the reason I didn't want to be giving birth at a hospital. And it's so interesting that it did happen, you know, just not being listened to. That part, it was very apparent that that my desires were kind of being shoved off, and that she thought that her expertise like won out over what I know and I see my body is doing and capable of, you know. Luckily, I was in a position where my nurse actually told me, like, you can say no, you have the right to refuse any, you know, anything you want. They can't make you do anything, right? So just an FYI, just so you know that you do have power, you do have autonomy. Yes, you want to listen to what's best for your baby, but then also know, like, that the powers that be might not be telling you what's best for your body and your baby. They might be telling you what will, you know, get the baby out quicker because they're wanting the baby out quicker or during their shift or something like that. Just, you know, something to be aware of in a hospital setting.